I've discovered a darker side of my girlfriend. I liked it, but now she's begging me to forget what I saw. Hey Reddit. When I met Emily, she was the kindest, sweetest, and most understanding person I had ever known. We had been dating for almost 2 years, and in that time, I had never once seen her lose her temper, raise her voice, or act in any way that would be considered aggressive. She was always the peacemaker, always the one to diffuse tension, always the one who saw the best in people. And I loved that about her. She made me feel safe, made me feel like no matter how bad my day was, she would always be my sanctuary. But then, I saw something I wasn't supposed to. It started one evening when we went out for dinner. The restaurant was packed, and we had to wait nearly 30 minutes for our table. Emily, being her usual self, smiled at the hostess and said it was no problem. We stood off to the side, chatting about our day, when this group of loud, obnoxious guys walked in. They were the kind of people who thought the world revolved around them, talking loudly, cursing without a care, and clearly expecting VIP treatment. One of them, a guy in his late 20s with an arrogant smirk, cut in front of us and leaned on the hostess stand. He acted like we didn't even exist. "Hey, we've been waiting," I said, my tone firm but not aggressive. The guy barely glanced at me. "Yeah? So what?" He turned to the hostess. "Table for 4. Now." I expected Emily to do what she always did, calm me down, tell me it wasn't worth it. But when I looked at her, something was different. Her usual warm expression was gone. In its place was something cold. Calculated. Dangerous. "Excuse me," she said, her voice eerily calm. "You just cut in front of us." The guy smirked. "Yeah, and?" Emily smiled, a small, tight-lipped smile that sent a chill down my spine. And I watched as she took a step forward, so close that he had no choice but to look at her directly. For a second, I thought she was going to slap him, but instead, she leaned in and whispered something in his ear. I don't know what she said. But whatever it was, it made him pale. His cocky smirk vanished, replaced by something I had never seen before, fear. His hands clenched into fists like he wanted to react, but he didn't. Instead, he took a step back, mumbled something under his breath, and waved at his friends. "Let's go, man. We're leaving." Just like that, they left. No argument. No fight. They just walked out like scared little kids. I turned to Emily, my heart racing. What the hell just happened? She gave me a soft, sweet smile, the same one I had seen 1,000 times. "Nothing, babe. Don't worry about it." But I did worry about it. Because for the rest of the night, I couldn't stop thinking about the look on that guy's face. The way Emily had transformed in an instant from the kind, loving girlfriend I knew into someone who could send a grown man running with just a few whispered words. That wasn't the only time it happened. A week later, we were at a small coffee shop when I saw it again. Some guy was being rude to a barista, acting like he owned the place. Emily watched him for a few seconds, then casually walked over. She didn't yell. Didn't make a scene. Just leaned in and whispered something. And just like before, the guy went pale, eyes wide with fear. He left his coffee on the counter and bolted out of the shop without another word. I couldn't take it anymore. As we walked back to my car, I stopped her. "Emily. What the hell was that?" She looked at me, her eyes unreadable. "What do you mean? Don't play dumb. That's twice now. You did something, said something, to those guys, and they ran like scared little kids." She sighed, looking away for a moment before meeting my gaze again. "You don't need to know," she said softly. That only made me more determined. "Emily, I need to know." She hesitated, biting her lip. Then, finally, she spoke. "There are things about me you don't know," she admitted. "Things I never wanted you to see." "Like what?" She looked at me for a long time, as if debating whether to tell me the truth. But then she just shook her head. "It's better if you forget about it." But I couldn't forget about it. I kept replaying those moments in my head. I started watching her more closely, noticing things I hadn't before. The way she always seemed aware of her surroundings, how she always chose the seat with the best vantage point when we went out, how she never seemed surprised by anything. Then, one night, I found something. We were at her apartment, watching a movie, when she got up to grab something from the kitchen. Her phone buzzed on the coffee table. I glanced at it out of instinct, and froze. The message was from a number with no name. "We need to talk. Things are getting messy." Before I could process what that meant, Emily returned, saw the look on my face, and immediately knew what had happened. "You read it," she said, her voice quiet. "Who is it?" I asked. She sighed, running a hand through her hair. "You weren't supposed to see that." "See what?" "Emily, what's going on?" She hesitated, then sat down next to me. I watched as she took a deep breath, as if preparing herself for something big. "I have a past," she admitted. "One I never wanted you to know about." I felt my stomach tighten. "What kind of past?" She looked at me, her eyes filled with something I couldn't quite place. "You have to promise me something," she said softly. "Whatever I tell you. You can't look at me differently." I swallowed hard. "Emily, I just want the truth." She nodded, looking away for a moment. Then she turned back to me, her expression unreadable. "All right," she said. "I'll tell you. But once you know, you can't unknow." And just like that, my world was about to change forever. I sat there, my heart pounding as Emily stared at me, her expression unreadable. The woman I had known for 2 years, the woman I loved, was suddenly a stranger to me. My mind raced with possibilities. Was she in trouble? Was she involved in something illegal? Was she even the person I thought she was? She took a deep breath, glancing at the door as if contemplating an escape before finally turning back to me. "You have to understand, I never wanted you to know this. I wanted to leave it all behind. But the past doesn't just disappear. It lingers, waiting for the right moment to pull you back in." I swallowed hard, my hands gripping my knees. "Emily, just tell me. No more vague warnings. What the hell is going on?" She let out a slow breath and leaned back against the couch, staring at the ceiling as if searching for the right words. "You know how I never talk about my life before we met? That's because I made sure there was nothing left to talk about." That didn't answer anything, but I kept quiet, letting her speak at her own pace. "I wasn't always the person you know now," she continued. "A long time ago, I was someone very different. Someone dangerous." Dangerous. That word sent a chill through me. Emily wasn't dangerous. She was the most caring person I knew. But then I thought back to the restaurant, to the coffee shop, to the way she had made grown men run with just a whisper. I used to be involved with people. People who do things in the shadows, who make problems disappear. I wasn't just involved with them, I was one of them. My breath caught in my throat. "What are you saying?" She looked at me, her eyes cold and sharp in a way I had never seen before. "I was a fixer. If someone had a problem, I made it go away." I stared at her, my mind struggling to comprehend what I was hearing. A fixer. That word alone carried weight. It meant she had been part of something dark, something beyond the law. "I wasn't always the person who diffuses situations with words," she continued. "There was a time when I handled things differently. More permanently." A lump formed in my throat. "Are you telling me that you—" "Yes." She didn't let me finish. She didn't need to. The way she said it, so calmly, so matter-of-factly, sent a wave of nausea through me. My girlfriend, sweet, kind, always in control Emily, was admitting to something I couldn't even say out loud. I had to get out. I needed air. I stood up abruptly, pacing the small living room, my mind spinning. Emily watched me, waiting, knowing that what she had just told me was tearing my world apart. I don't know what to say," I muttered. "You wanted the truth." I ran a hand through my hair. "This is insane. You're telling me that for years that's in the past," she interrupted. "I haven't been part of that world in a long time. I walked away. I erased my tracks. I built a new life." "Then why did that guy text you? If you're out, why are they still contacting you?" Her jaw tightened. "Because some people don't let go." I stopped pacing and turned to face her. "Is that why those guys in the restaurant ran? Because they knew who you were?" She nodded. "Or they knew the reputation of the person I used to be." Jesus Christ, Emily. I felt like I was in a movie, like any second now, I'd wake up and realize none of this was real. But it was real. She had just admitted it. I looked at her, really looked at her, searching for any sign of the woman I thought I knew. And she was still there. The way she was watching me, her lips pressed together in anticipation of my reaction, her fingers nervously tapping against the couch, she was still Emily. I sat back down slowly, exhaling. "Why are they contacting you now?" She hesitated before answering. "Because something is happening. Something big. And they think I'm the only one who can fix it." I stared at her, waiting for her to continue. She sighed. "You have to understand, in that world, once you build a reputation, it never really goes away. Even if you leave, people remember what you were capable of. And when things start falling apart, they come looking for the person they trust to clean up the mess." "What kind of mess?" She hesitated. "The kind that doesn't leave loose ends." I swallowed hard, my mind screaming at me to stop asking questions. But I needed to know. If this world was creeping back into our lives, I needed to understand what we were up against. "Emily, are we in danger?" She looked at me for a long moment before shaking her head. "Not yet. Not yet." Those words settled in my chest like a weight. "Then what do they want from you?" She exhaled sharply. "They want me to come back. To handle something. But I told them no." "Will they accept that?" She hesitated again, and that hesitation told me everything I needed to know. "I don't know," she admitted. I leaned back, running a hand over my face. This was too much. Too fast. But one thing was clear, whatever she had left behind, it was coming back. And it wasn't going to just disappear. So what do we do? I asked. Emily looked at me, and for the first time that night, I saw something new in her eyes: fear. We wait, she said. And we hope that no one else comes looking for me. But deep down, I knew it wasn't going to be that simple. The next few days were a blur of paranoia and tension. Emily tried to act normal, but I could see the shift in her. She was more alert, constantly checking over her shoulder, always scanning every room we entered. It was like she was waiting for something, someone. And that terrified me. I had so many questions, but I also knew that the more I asked, the deeper I would be dragged into whatever this was. Still, I couldn't just pretend like nothing was happening. On the third night after her confession, it happened. We were at my apartment, eating dinner in silence, when there was a knock at the door. Not a friendly, casual knock. 3 slow, deliberate knocks. Emily froze mid-bite, her fork hovering just above her plate. "Don't answer it," she whispered. But it was too late. My curiosity got the better of me. I stood up and approached the door, peering through the peephole. A man in a dark suit stood there, hands clasped in front of him, face calm but unreadable. Something about him made my stomach twist. "Who is it?" I asked, not opening the door. The man's voice was smooth, controlled. "Tell Emily we need to talk." I turned back to her. Her face had gone pale. "It's him, isn't it?" She took a deep breath and stood up, wiping her mouth with a napkin like she was preparing for a business meeting. "Let me handle this." "Emily, I don't think," she placed a hand on my arm, her grip firm. "Stay inside. No matter what." Then she opened the door and stepped outside, pulling it shut behind her. I pressed my ear against the door, straining to hear. The man spoke first. "You've ignored our calls. I told you, I'm out." "That's not how this works, Emily. You know that." A pause. A long one. Then she spoke, her voice low and sharp. "I buried that life. Don't make me dig it up again." The man chuckled, but there was no humor in it. "We both know you don't get to decide that." Another silence. My heart pounded. Then he said something that made my blood run cold. "Your boyfriend, he doesn't know what you really did, does he?" I tensed. Emily's voice dropped to a deadly whisper. "If you even say his name again, I'll remind you why people used to be afraid of me." For the first time, there was a flicker of hesitation in the man's voice. "Emily, listen. We don't want trouble. We just need you to clean this up. One last job, and you're free." She exhaled sharply. "That's what you said last time. This time, we mean it." I heard footsteps. He was leaving. Emily stood there for a few moments before coming back inside. Her face was unreadable, but I could see the storm in her eyes. "What did he mean?" I asked. "What haven't you told me?" She looked at me, really looked at me, and I knew, this was it. The moment of truth. "There was one job I never finished," she admitted. "And now it's coming back to haunt me." I swallowed hard. "What kind of job?" She hesitated. Then, finally, she said it. "I was supposed to kill someone. And I didn't." The air left my lungs. "They think it's unfinished business," she continued. "And they won't stop until it's done." I felt like the floor was collapsing beneath me. Emily had done terrible things, but she had also walked away. She had chosen a different path. And now, because of one unfinished job, we were both trapped in the consequences of her past. "So what do we do?" I asked. She clenched her jaw. "We end it." The finality in her voice sent a chill through me. That night, Emily made a decision. She wasn't going to run. She wasn't going to hide. She was going to confront her past head on, and I had to decide, was I going to stand by her, no matter what that meant? But before I could make that choice, the danger came to us first. Because at that moment, outside the window, a second shadow moved. We weren't alone. And the fight wasn't over.